What up, y'all? It's me, Michael Joel Bartel. It is Friday, the 20th of April. Ooh la la. And this is what I've been learning. I have been reading an 18th century empiricist philosopher from Britain by the name of David Hume. It's really interesting, but it's a bit, in terms of putting together an 8 or 9 minute video that's also entertaining, not necessarily the like blockbuster material. Not that I'm claiming that any of the stuff I do is, but I thought, this week I'd like actually to share what I've been learning on a more personal level, particularly because the lessons that I've been learning in particular in the last few months, let's say since November, December of last year, have been some of the most important things I've learned probably in my life. The subject matter is codependence, my own codependence. It's interesting because that's a word that I never really associated with myself before, although maybe certain former partners of mine might have a different idea, might have a different take. The reason that I kind of wanted to start inquiring into myself and about these patterns is that I've noticed that, for example, if I'm in a relationship, I tend to be very committed to the relationship that I'm in. I tend to be very passionate about it and about the person that I'm with, to the extent that I kind of everything in my life becomes about that other person. Then when it ends, invariably I feel this just sense of despair, this sense of like a feeling of I can't cope. I have like anxiety, I get depressed, I feel worthless. And it sort of occurred to me recently that maybe that's not healthy or necessary. I kind of thought, you know what? I've heard about these patterns and have not wanted to associate myself with them, but maybe it'd be a good time to start investigating. So I did a little bit of research and I sort of started looking at certain things that go along with being a codependent individual, or I like to think of it more as having codependent patterns. They're quite varied, but they involve things like believing that other people aren't capable of taking care of themselves, for example. And I remember sort of looking at that and thinking like, well, wow, like I think that is a quality that I have. And I always thought of it as a good thing. I always thought of it as like, oh, like I'm so willing to go out of my way to look after other people, but perhaps that's not a good thing, even if it is coming from a place of goodness, coming from a place of love, coming from a place of caring about somebody. It might not be the best way about things, because people do grow resentful about not being able to kind of do their own thing, not being able to look after themselves in the way that they can, that they know that they're able to. Also, another pattern is sometimes being out of touch with what one wants for oneself, being out of touch with one's own needs, not truly understanding the full extent of one's own feelings. And I've always thought of myself as somebody who's quite in touch with my own feelings, but when I really considered it, I thought, you know what? So much of the time, my own feelings have been minimized at the expense of what I feel another person needs, and so I sort of shut them down and do what I can for another person. But then, of course, because we all have needs, and when these needs are neglected, they make themselves known. Eventually, they come up and they bubble up, and it's like a kind of volcanic explosion, where all of a sudden I'm overwhelmed with these feelings. I'm kind of overcome by them. And that's something that's really happened to me a lot too, and to the detriment of the relationships that I've been in. And so now, more recently, as I've been doing this self-inquiry and looking into these patterns for myself, I'm realizing that this is a big issue for me. And not only that, but that there's another way to go about relating to people. And the big realization for me has been that although I've always thought of myself as a generous and giving and kind person, and that may still be true, I have often been using those qualities or using my generosity, trying to be charming or whatever it might be, specifically in order to kind of manipulate people. And although I've never done that with any sort of ill intentions, I've realized that, there are patterns within me where I try to kind of dictate what sort of response somebody's going to have to me, to try to control how someone's going to feel about me or how somebody's going to behave toward me. And that is a pattern that comes from a feeling like I need to control the situation or to control other people. And of course, this comes from my upbringing and the immense amount of responsibility I felt as a child in my particular situation, and that's for me to deal with on my own. But the big realization for me is that having operated that way, I've realized that not only is it not possible to control other people, like trying to do things to get specific reactions out of somebody, it often backfires. So it's not only not possible, but it's not desirable either, because everybody, I think, has an intrinsic desire for freedom and can to some extent feel when somebody's trying to control them. And of course there are some people who want to be controlled in a way because that makes them feel safe, but of course that's a whole other aspect of codependence too. But that really there is no control over anything else. I have control over a very limited set of things. I can control to a certain degree what I'm thinking. I can control to a pretty large degree my actions, my words, but beyond my own kind of mental activity and beyond my own physical choices, I'm not able to control anything else. Anything about the universe, anything which includes other people, or other animals even. There's no control at all over anything else. And while that seems obvious, it really, having that realization for me has been one of the most major events in my life. And it feels like such a weight off my shoulders to think, you know what? I don't have to try to control anybody else or anything else because I can't. And I can just focus on what I'm feeling, what I need, what I'm doing, what makes me feel alive, right? What makes me feel happy? What makes me feel like I have a purpose? And that is what I've been concentrating on in these most recent months. And I can say that I've been so incredibly happy. I've been so incredibly fulfilled. I realized recently, I was talking to a friend, I realized it's the first time I've ever felt so happy, and not because I've been in love with somebody. I'm in love with my life. I'm in love with what I've created for myself. And it's so much more sustainable because the people that can come and go in my life are going to come and go. I'm always going to be with myself. And the way that I decide to live from day to day, from moment to moment, is going to determine to a large degree how I'm feeling. Whatever is in my actual power to make myself feel better and to bring goodness into the world, that's what I'll do. But anything else, I just kind of have to deal with it. And again, to me, that's come as such an amazing, immense relief. I'm sure most of you know this already, but I'm happy to join those of you for whom this was already true. Very much so. It's something that I'm still learning about. It's something that I'm still working on. Obviously, patterns run really deep. It's going to be constant work, but I have a group that I go to of people who get together and talk about these things and work on these things. The paradigm shift itself has been just tremendous. For the first time, I feel as though just by being who I am, doing what I feel is good in each moment, and can lead to positive outcomes for myself. Those that are in my control. Any relationships that I do have, anybody who's already in my life or anybody who comes into my life will either appreciate these things about me or they won't. I can't determine one way or the other. The great thing is, though, the ones that do appreciate me for who I am and what I do, we'll get along great. And the ones that don't, oh well. Like, luckily there are 7 billion other people out there that they can get along with instead if they want. I hope that you feel the same way about your relationship with yourself. If not, and you want a little help, if you want some recommendations, I mean, I'm not going to act as anybody's counselor, but because I'm not, that's not what I am. But if you want any recommendations for books or resources, please, you know where to find me. You can leave a comment down below, or you can personal message me, email me, what have you. You know where to find me. So I'd be very happy to point you in that direction because, hey, there's only one of you, and you might as well enjoy it. Thank you very much for joining me again. It's been lovely as always. I hope you join again next week. And until then, be good to yourself and be wonderful to each other. Thank you.